So if we combine everything that Jim has taught us up until this point, we can get an interesting comping line kind of like this one. Jim Hall was one of the masters of guitar comping and chordal soloing. In this lesson, I'm going to show you some of his chordal secrets that are so simple yet genius, it'll blow your mind. Let's get into it. For this lesson, we are going to be looking at some concepts from his famous recording of I'm Getting Sentimental Over You with Pete LaRocca and Steve Swallow. You can find the transcription of this whole performance on my Patreon free of charge, which will be linked below. So the first simple yet genius concept that Jim Hall shows us is the idea of breaking up our guitar chord shapes. Take this line, for example. What seems like a really complex line is really just our simple shell voicings with a root broken up. Jim breaks up these voicings in a variety of different ways. The first being that he'll hit the lowest note of our voicing first, and then all the other notes above that one. Or playing each note by itself, kind of like an arpeggio. Here's a great example of Jim doing this concept in a 2-5-1 line. So let's apply this simple concept to our own voicings now. Let's take these common drop 2 guitar voicings and just by breaking up these voicings, we could play a comping line kind of like this one. Notice on this example, I broke up the D minor 7 chord by playing the outside notes of the voicing, and then the inside notes. Or, like I did on the G7 chord, it was a combination of playing different notes in that voicing. Here's another example using this concept. Alright, so the next simple yet masterful concept that Jim shows us can be demonstrated with this line. So this complex line can be broken down into 2 simple parts. The first is shell voicings with color. So Jim will often play what is referred to as a shell voicing when comping or playing chords, which I alluded to earlier in this lesson. This is simply when you only play the essential notes of a chord, being the 3rd or the 7th. So if we played a C major 7 chord using our shell voicing, then the only notes we would play would be the B and the E. So then Jim takes our shell voicing and then often adds a color tone above it. So for example, if we had an F7 chord, we would first take our shell voicing, and then we could use on the next string above our shell voicing, which in this case is the B string, we could add various color notes such as the 9, the flat 9, or the sharp 9. Here's an example of Jim using this concept in a 3-6-2-5-1 progression. Now we can even add 2 color notes if we have room on the guitar. In the case of our F7 voicing, we still have this high E string available to put a note on. So if we played our shell voicing with a color tone, we can also add the 5th or any variation of the 5th. Or we could change where we're playing our shell voicing, and that could open up more options for colors. So for example, instead of playing our shell voicing for F7 here, let's flip it, and now we'll put the A on top and the E flat on the bottom and play it down here. Now this opens up a couple of more options because we have the G string and the B string available above our shell voicing. So let's add the 13 to our shell voicing, being D. And then we can also add the G on top of that and make a 13-9 voicing. Here's an example of Jim using our shell voicing concept along with the concept we previously talked about, being breaking up our voicings. Alright, so the next simple yet masterful concept that Jim shows us is the concept of voice leading. To demonstrate this, let's look at the previous example that I showed you at the beginning of the last section, and I want you just to look at the top note of each one of these voicings. You can see that there's a melodic line, being the top note, moving the opposite direction of the shell voicings Jim is playing beneath them. So this chordal line sounds awesome because of that. The top note of our voice is gluing all the rest of it together. We could apply this concept to a simple 2-5-1 now. Let's take the concept of shell voicings with color that Jim showed us previously and create some voicings to do this with. So let's use these shapes for this example. Now, since our top note moves opposite of our chords, let's break it up using the concepts that Jim showed us previously. Here's another line that Jim plays using this same concept. Notice on all these examples, the top note of our voicing is based around the shell voicing and the notes above the shell voicing that are available to us. In other words, it's okay to use the guitar and its shapes to visualize this kind of comping rather than thinking about just the top note specifically. All right, so the last thing I want to draw your attention to is Jim's use of rhythm. As you heard from many of these examples, the rhythm that Jim plays is not just whole notes and half notes on the downbeats. Often Jim will play upbeats, as in this example, or when he plays downbeats, he makes it really intentional, just like in this example. Always keep rhythm in mind when comping using our Jim Hall concepts, or any concepts really when playing the guitar. I want to close this lesson by combining everything together and comping over the first A section of the great standard There Will Never Be Another You. If you would like the Guitar Pro, along with the PDF and the music XML file, for not only this etude, but every example that I showed in this lesson, make sure to subscribe to my Patreon, which you can find linked below. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching this lesson about Jim Hall's simple yet masterful comping concepts. If you would like more comping videos, make sure to check out my Peter Bernstein analysis on his comping over rhythm changes, which you can find in the corner of the screen. Also, I want to give a shout out to all the new subscribers lately. In 2023, we grew so much, and I'm just trying to continue that momentum and give you guys really great content. So if you're liking what I'm doing, hit that like and subscribe button. And also, if you really want to support the channel directly, make sure to sign up for the Patreon. That really helps. All right, thank you guys for watching. And as always, remember to always keep swinging.